Well, hello.
Hey everybody, how's it going out there on TV land?
Are they okay?
Oh yeah, sorry. There was a lot of commotion going on in my background here. How's it going, Andy?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
Living the dream. I'm in Canada, so I went across the border and I'm in Canada. So I'm on the West Coast time zone, which is exciting. Um, that's why I'm in a sweatshirt and a jacket and a hat and all this, and I have my mask here because we're quarantining in British Columbia. So I'm on a little bit of a thing.
How long do you have to quarantine for?
It's 14 days. 14 days of quarantining, and then I get to meet my niece that was born in May. So I'm excited. But yeah, traveling.
Well, it seems like it would be worth it.
Yeah, and I'll say just offhand, traveling during during COVID-19 felt actually pretty safe. Everyone was wearing masks on the plane. We had like 6 feet around us. The plane was 20% full, so I definitely kind of was opened my eyes a little bit about, okay, I have a colleague of mine has been doing a pretty decently amount of frequent travel, and he's like, yeah, there's nobody around me and I have my mask on and I feel fine. So a little bit out of the comfort zone, but did it. And here we are. So we have a great show. We got Rick West from.
I'm really excited. I've known Rick for, gosh, at least 25 years or so.
Yeah, I've known him for at least 5 to 10 minutes. So looking forward to bringing him on. And but now go ahead.
Huh? Oh, he's a great guy. He's a bastion of the theme park and haunt community here in Southern California.
No, it's great. So, Andy, we have some news. What's on the news today?
Well, the big news today is the news tomorrow, which is California is going to issue the reopening guides for theme parks, large and small, from the governor's office, and I guess it's going to include all the rules and regulations that'll be required to open the Disneyland Resort back up, and others, Knott's and Universal and Six Flags and SeaWorld, but Knott's and SeaWorld has been open. They've been open in various ways for the last few months at least. But yeah, I think we're going to find out what it's going to take to reopen the resort finally. I think that it's probably going to be a lot more draconian than people are expecting and hoping for. I think it's going to be, there's going to be restrictions on waiting until the COVID levels or a certain percentage of cases or positive cases have to be at a certain level or whatever. But I think it's going to be, yeah, you can open, but not right now. And here's what here's at least there's going to be concrete, terms that people can look forward to at the very least. And so be interesting. And all the unions have agreed with everything, and all the employees in the unions have agreed with each other, and so they're ready to go. They could open tomorrow.
Yeah, and I will just say the amount of, this is not a political show, but obviously we're in the business of theme parks, and so politics are attached to that. But the amount of theater around reopening Disneyland and the California parks is, I just don't even understand it at this point. It's been this weird thing out there. I mean, so many other things are open in California, and and I come from this as somebody who's been to Walt Disney World several times at this point. Always felt safe. Everyone's wearing masks. It's 95 to 98% of people are wearing masks, or they're off to the side. So the amount of rigmarole that Gavin Newsom has done for this, I don't get it. I'm kind of confused by it.
Yeah, I think everyone is. The only thing I could think of is that he's just trying to be a hero, and not taking any chances, and doesn't want to be blamed for a rise in cases, which is already happening anyway. The cases are already going up. I mean, here in Burbank, they went up quite a bit this last week. So I mean, independent of whether a theme park is open or not. I mean, so I don't think it makes any difference.
Yeah, I mean, I know Rick's in the green room, but I'll just say that Walt Disney World opened up at the peak of COVID-19 in Florida, and then as soon as they opened, I mean, I'm not saying there's any correlation, but the case counts went down to where we're now one of this, we're just kind of flatlined at in Orlando, you know, it's like 180 a day, and we have a population of 1.2 million. And so it just feels like there wasn't a bunch of cases tied to the theme parks. It didn't seem like that.
What it does is it proves that masks work, and all you have to do is wear a mask. If everyone wears a mask, it's going to go away.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you've got 10, 20, 30,000 people. There you go. Fashionable. Right over your
Wear a mask.
I mean, you got 10 or 20, 30,000 people in a theme park, and they're all wearing masks. I mean, it's statistically, negligible for any cases, I would imagine.
And obviously, we're not scientists. We would rely on the scientific data, but
I'm not.
But it does seem to be that Disney is very capable of, the safety parameters that worked in Orlando seem to work fine. And even like if you look at SeaWorld, where people aren't wearing masks, or Dollywood, where people are not really wearing masks, those are clear cases where it's not doing too hot. But Disney and Universal, and I presume not. I mean, it's it'll be fine. And we have seen that the language that Disney's using on their things are like, you will be ejected from the park if you are not wearing masks. Like they are ratcheting that up because they don't want to deal with this. They don't want to have all their the company shut down in Disneyland. And for me it's really challenging because this is all very personal for me. It's like these are my friends that are waiting to see if they're able to get employed again, or they've been laid off, or they're on furlough. And so the public out there there was some people organized a protest at Disneyland this weekend, and people are like, oh, people are whining about trying to go to Disneyland and this and that. It's like, well, the government's not helping them out, and there are businesses that are shuttered and basically destroyed. And if the government is not going to take over payroll for a company or keep these people employed or keep them safe, and you look at the data that shows that it's not being transmitted. And to think, like, where do we go from there? You know what I mean? I want this to be over as much as the next guy, but if we're in this weird world where there is no help from there's very little assistance from the government, and there's no clear strategy, it's just been a mess. And we started this lockdown show when we were all in quarantine, and we were doing it, and we wanted it to go away, but it never did. It was a lot of loose ends. So wear a mask, folks.
I honestly, when we started this show 7 months ago, I would never have guessed that we'd be where we are today. I thought, I thought like, oh, this is just like for like a month or 2 or 3 tops. I thought just like everybody else, like come summer, it's going to be all back to normal. We'll be all back at the parks and at the beaches and at the museums and eating inside restaurants, going to movies, and but like here we are. It's almost Halloween. I think that it's going to be a strange Christmas as well, and who knows what it's going to be like, even next year. I mean, I don't know. But why don't we let's bring on our Mr. Rick West, a creative director extraordinaire from Themed Entertainment and Midsummer Scream, and the much beloved and now defunct Theme Park Adventure, which is how we met. I met when you were selling issues of The Break Zone out of the trunk of your car in the Disneyland parking lot.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. I don't even remember that. That's so long ago. That's some vintage nuggets right there, Andy. But thanks for having me on, guys.
Welcome to the show. It's so good to have you.
Cool.
I've gotten 3 political texts just in the last 3 minutes. Sorry.
My phone's turned off because I'm just let's see. I was kicked off of Twitter for being too political, and I think that Blackfish 2 is going to be about the orcas not wearing masks at the SeaWorld Park. I think that's probably what's going on, and I'm here in Pasadena where it's like 80 degrees, and I'm not in a jacket or a hat, and I'm not wearing pants. So it's very different than British Columbia.
Yeah, it is. Well, we have the windows open to keep the air circulation flowing for the safety of others around us. So I'm in a little area and all that.
Nice.
But yeah, it's weird when you live in Florida and Orlando and it's like 85, 90 in October, and I'm like, how do I pack for British Columbia, 50-degree weather?
Right.
And especially like after a pandemic quarantine where I can't fit in anything anymore, I'm like, okay, what can I actually try to finagle into an outfit that can work? But I did it.
You need to go outside and skin an alligator, basically, like Red Dead Redemption, and just take that with you.
Well, I'm so happy to have you on the show, Rick. I've wanted to have you on since the beginning. I've been waiting for Halloween to come around to bring you on the show, because you are, in my mind, you're Mr. Halloween. You've always been heavily involved in the haunt community here in Southern California with Boot Hill, yours and Shay's haunt down in Irvine, and now Midsummer Scream. You've got your own whole ass convention that you do down in Long Beach every year now, that you're creative director of, and I'm so pleased for you and so proud, and it's all come full circle for you in terms of Halloween.
It's a pretty crazy journey. So it's there's a lot to digest, but it's been a great journey, and one that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world.
So let's start out with tell us your sort of story and how you got to be this pillar of the haunt community over the last the decades.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em, boys. Here we go. Well, I grew up in Southern California in the 70s, and I just, for whatever reason, was a little kid that was never afraid of anything. Like Halloween came around, and my grandfather would take me out trick-or-treating around the blocks in the Inland Empire, and I would just lose my freaking mind at any yard that was like made up. Doesn't matter whether it was a really elaborate display, which only very few were that elaborate in the early 70s. But you could have like the lights turned off and one red bulb screwed in playing a scratchy, the thrilling, chilling sounds of Halloween, record. And I would be all about that one house, like bullseye on that house. Then I discovered horror movies and my grandfather started taking me to all the horror movies I would make him drag me to in San Bernardino. And my love just grew from that. And so flash forward to right out of high school in the late 80s, I hired into Disneyland, and I started working Pirates of the Caribbean and the Haunted Mansion. That's just really what I wanted to do, so that's where I ended up. Fell in love with that. That's kind of how I got the entire, oh my God, I want to do this for a living theme park bug that's in so many of our systems. And at the same time, I really was a frustrated writer. I wanted to create newsletters, and because I thought, boy, if I love this stuff so much, there's got to be other people that love this stuff too, and I really want to communicate. So at the time, there were only a handful, less than you could count on one hand, of industry mags or newsletters at that time. It was like Persistence of Vision, the E-Ticket magazine, Storyboard, The Art of Laughter, and then there was not much else, right? So I created TPA in 1994, a few years later, and in creating that, I was kind of like, well, you know what? I love Las Vegas, and I love coasters, and I love zoos, and I really love Halloween, and nobody's really focused on those, so that kind of became a core of TPA. And so over the years, blazed a lot of trails in the haunt community, before there was really even a haunt community here in Southern California, and knocked open a lot of doors and a lot of ways of doing things with Not Scary Farm, as far as documenting their attractions or videotaping, the walkthroughs. TPA became very famous for videotaping the walkthroughs at Not Scary Farm. That was something that we started with them, and something that through the 24 years that TPA was around, we were the only ones that were really allowed to coordinate with the park. It was a big effort. So if you go on YouTube, the TPA, some of those flow-throughs of those mazes are in the hundreds of thousands, which is really, really crazy. Flash forward a little bit past that, I was asked to come aboard and help create Scare-O-Lay years ago, and said yes to that. Did Scare-O-Lay for its first 3 years, which were very, very good and very strong. And then there was an internal rift that created Midsummer Scream, and about 90% of that team from Scare-O-Lay went over and created Midsummer, which I was the co-founder and the creative director of. And here we are 5 years later. This was supposed to be our 5th anniversary this year in Long Beach. We were expecting over 40,000 to come to Long Beach, but we got shut down by the virus. And so next year in Long Beach, July 9th through 11th, that will be our 5th anniversary. And we're very excited about that.
That's so great.
So for those,
that's my elevator pitch. That must have been a long-ass elevator ride.
I always love when I hear people who worked at Disneyland. I worked at Disneyland as well, so I worked in Tomorrowland attractions, and so there's that special kinship, right, that you have with people that struggled and did that, which is great. So how did you? So for those of you who have no idea what Midsummer Scream is, and you say 40,000 people at a convention center. I mean, that's crazy. So what is? Paint us a picture. How did it start? You said it was Scare LA. It started off as that. Like, how did it organically start?
So there were two people at the beginning. That one was an event producer, one was in marketing, and they tapped me because neither one of them had the reach into the haunt community that TPA had, and so that's how that formed. And then when we broke away and did Midsummer Scream, it was the same thing. We just took what we had learned the previous 3.5 years doing Scare LA and just embiggened it and made it explode into Midsummer Scream. Our first year at Long Beach, we had 8,000 guests. And like I said, this year we were supposed to have over 40,000. So the growth has been absolutely ridiculous. Monstrous, if you will.
That's great. And so sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Andy.
Go ahead.
So when you're at this convention, and I apologize, I want our viewers to know who maybe never seen this.
Of course, of course.
So it's like I'm very familiar with Comic-Con. People might know that it's like Comic-Con, but for haunts experiences, at-home haunts, big haunts, all that kind of stuff. So what would somebody expect to say? Hey, I'm going to go to LA in July and see it. First off, that's incredible. Just starting that big of a thing. I mean, it's got to be pretty crazy when you realize like this thing that you started is now 40,000 people are here. And there are so many different things that are a part of it that like you can't be everywhere at once. And so it's just this entity that's huge that you started. I mean, that's got to be incredible.
It's incredible. It's also literally terrifying. It keeps you up at night, staring at the ceiling. But it's just one of those things where there's a million moving pieces to putting together something of that magnitude. It's about an 18-month process to do Midsummer. So you just kind of pick off all the little moving pieces at a time, and suddenly you got a show. Obviously, you've got to be good at what you do and have faith in a team. I mean, there are 4 of us at the executive level, and then our core team is about 20 to 25 people. And then beyond that, our frontline folks, which we refer to as the White Bat team. Last year, we had about 250, 300. So it literally takes an army to do this, and we're very proud of our customer service and all that. But you're right. So the layman's terms, it's Comic-Con of Halloween. So anything that you would expect at a large scale convention, like panel presentations. So like we're partners with Knott's Berry Farm, Universal Studios, Queen Mary, Six Flags. They all come out and they deliver large scale presentations. We have a main theater that holds about 2,000 people. They all come out and they announce what they're doing in the upcoming season. So the fact that we're in the middle of summer isn't just because the name Midsummer sounded cool. It is because that is when all of these guys started really announcing what they were doing at Halloween. So it's by design. Any earlier than that, unless you're Universal, you're not announcing that stuff. And any later than that, and all the haunts and all the haunters are in the throes of putting their stuff together, so they're not going to be available to come out. So it's absolutely by design when we are and where we are also. And we can get into that because there's no other haunt community anywhere in the world that is as dense and as complex and fantastic as here in Southern California.
Sorry, go ahead, Andy.
No, good.
Yeah, so I am. We have people that watch around the world, and so like, literally, they do. They're like, "Hey, I'm watching from Australia," and I'm like, "That's pretty cool." Awesome. I grew up in Orange County, then lived in LA for a bit, and then I'm in Orlando, and so. We probably would say that our audiences are from LA and Orlando, and then some places otherwise, and like in Orlando community has Halloween Horror Nights, Halloween Scream, and then a couple tiny little things. But LA has so many, all sorts of events. Like, how would you even describe the culture around it that existed for decades, right? Like it's been a
Yeah.
thing out there that hasn't really been possible. Maybe part of it's the weather. Like there's like only certain areas where people want to be out going on these
Yeah.
things. But how did what's the community like out there? And how is the cult? I mean, how is that the haunt culture in general?
Yeah, so I think that you really could go back to the genesis of Hollywood here in Los Angeles. Hollywood is the birthplace of horror, right? So with the Universal films and all that, as well as the birthplace of the themed entertainment industry here in the United States anyway, right? So you have a lot of folks that grew up loving horror. You had a lot of people that knew how to do things. And suddenly you got a bunch of haunt-loving, horror-loving, wannabe Yale Gracies that are here in Southern California, and they're creative and they just want to do stuff. And boy, do they. So, like I said, it is so dense here that you could literally, in the Halloween season, you could go out every night and do something Halloween related here just in Southern California and still not hit everything.
Yeah.
And often for free, too.
Yeah, absolutely. We have, the home haunts that we have here in Southern California. And just for your viewers and for you guys also, there's a great resource that I use all the time. It's the SoCal Haunt List. So SoCalHauntList.com. That lists by all the different regions, like where some of the best big home haunts are here in Southern California. And it's a fantastic tool. I use it all the time when I'm planning to go around and take a look at things. And like every weekend now I'm going out, and like every night I'm doing like, 5 to 8, home haunts at a time, so it keeps you busy. And that's minus the theme parks. And we have the granddaddy of them all, Not Scary Farm, that was born here in the early 70s. And then you have everything that has followed, like Universal, and of course Queen Mary and Fright Fest at Magic Mountain, and LA Haunted Hayride, 13th floor. They've come on board now to take that over. And so you have some really large scale events here. But boy, I'm telling you, the cornerstone of Halloween here in Southern California, and I would imagine anywhere else in the world, really begins with the home haunters, right? Those are the young kids that are doing the designing. They're the armchair Imagineers of tomorrow that are going to create these screen parks, in the future. So that is what we're really, really focused on and very supportive of.
Well, sorry, go ahead, Andy.
You've got this great feature at Midsummer Scream, the what's it called? The
Hall of Shadows.
The Hall of Shadows.
The Hall of Shadows.
Yeah, and I love that you use that as a showcase for young talent as well. You tell us more about that.
Yeah. So one thing that I think really sets Midsummer apart than any other convention out there is that we have a really big, dark area. And when I'm talking big, the hall that we use is about 100,000 square feet. And we pack it full of haunted attractions and home haunts and displays that we find throughout the year, and mostly at Halloween. And then I do my recruiting, and they come in and they build these mini haunted attractions or replicate their yard displays in the Hall of Shadows. We turn all the lights off. We've got billowing fog. We've got music. We've got the Decayed Brigade slider team. They perform 3 times a day to hundreds of people at a time in there. And it's basically a nighttime theme park. It's a mini Halloween theme park that we create right at the Long Beach Convention Center.
Wow. All I'm hearing is I need to take my wife there. She loves Halloween, and I don't know. I've been living under a rock, or I've been living in Orlando, but this is incredible. One thing that we talk about. So I got all sorts of thoughts because I just love this.
Sure.
Is when people see like if they're not from LA and they haven't been to a home haunt, they may just be thinking of how elaborate do you get? Can you explain like some of the most elaborate home haunts that you see for those that may be in a residential area where they think, okay, you put a pumpkin out, maybe a witch, you call it a day. Like would you be able to kind of wrap our heads around a little bit more about what it's like?
Yeah, so many of the home haunts that we have here in Southern California go up and beyond what you'd even find at a theme park. I mean, they're theme park quality and beyond. There are some home haunts. One of my favorite show home haunts is the House at Haunted Hill. And if you go onto YouTube or if you go online, you can find it. It's a full-blown show that is handled by Show Control, has its own soundtrack. Corey Burton voices Jack, which is the jack-o'-lantern that narrates it. And it's unbelievable. And then there are home haunts that are walkthrough events, except for this year, like Rotten Apple. Rotten Apple is in Burbank, and they do a different theme every year, and it's beyond ridiculous what they build just for a few nights. And it attracts a ton of people and attention, and the young kids. I mean, the cool thing about being in the digital age is not so much the ugly dark side of social media, but the fact that somebody that's a haunter can say, I wonder how you make a candelabra float. And you can go online, and in 30 seconds, you have the complete how-to right in front of your eyeballs. And that's something that a lot of people growing up didn't have. So these new generations of haunters, like, it's all instant, man. You type in one thing online, and it is just a rabbit hole of things that you can do, fairly cheap usually at your house. And it's stuff that is up and beyond what you're seeing in most theme park haunts. And so the quality of haunts here in Southern California is mind-blowing. There is a film we can reference. It's called Epic Home Haunts, and it's free on Amazon Prime. Take a look at it, and it kind of focuses on several home haunts for several years, about their evolution, how they are built, and everything that goes into them. And it's pretty mind-blowing to see the process. And yeah, yours truly is in it. So there you go. Disclaimer, but it's a fun time, and it's very eye-opening, I think, for people that aren't aware of what's going on here in Southern California.
One of my favorite haunts here in Burbank, Rotten Apple is one, but the Backwoods Maze over on California Street. They keep their maze. They have a huge. Here in Burbank, the lots are about a quarter of an acre, and the houses are in front, and then there's, you've probably got another 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 square feet of backyard, and their entire backyard year round is set up with this giant haunted maze that's made out of, permanent structure made out of wood and steel, and they have all these incredible set pieces, and you can actually see it on Google Maps. You can see the whole maze in their backyard in Google Maps.
Yeah.
They keep it up year round, and that's one of my favorites too. It's incredible.
That's great. They're a team that I've known for years, and they're, again, if you go on to YouTube and search Backwoods Theme Park Adventure, certainly we have over the years shot that thing, and it's stunning. Really, it's like the 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag is what we say, right, in the industry. So it's unbelievable when you're in this backyard. You're like, how in the hell is all of this stuff in the backyard? But it is, and so they were dark last year, and I don't know if they were going to go this year. So we're hoping they come back, because we certainly love them. It's a great family, and so we'll see. We'll have to see what 2021 brings.
Yeah.
So one thing. So this is great. I guess my one thing that we struggle with in theme. So we're the theme entertainment, right? And we do theme park design, and I'm actually, so I normally would be at Halloween Horror Nights basically every night with my wife.
Right.
Had it not been canceled. So so I just wanted to know, I love Halloween Horror Nights. I love the scare. I grew up with Not Scary Farm, the sliders, all that. I was all in on that. I love all of the aspects of it. Having said all that, there is such a unique community here where you can build and design things that people can experience. With theme park attractions, the limit between going to school to be a concept designer for that and actually building one of the 10 rides that gets built a year that are actually attractions and maybe not just like a flat ride, it's huge. Like the chasm between that is so huge, but nothing is stopping people with a little bit of gumption and a little bit of elbow grease and some resources to create your own themed experience in your backyard or your front yard or your side yard or what have you. So I just love that aspect, and there wasn't really a question there. I just love it. There are very limited barriers to entry with this and creativity, which has been a huge struggle that we have with students and people. I don't know, I want to build a theme park. I did Roller Coaster Tycoon, and then I figured out how to get a job.
Well, you're spot on with that, and I mean, I can certainly attest to that. So for the past 10 years or so, I've been a show writer and creative director now in the themed entertainment industry here in Los Angeles. And being a show writer means that maybe 1% of everything you ever do sees the light of day, right?
You're lucky.
So when I do Midsummer Scream, it's a process that is 18 months. I know that every 18 months, what we plan and all the blood, sweat, and tears will come to fruition. So when we do open the doors and the thousands and thousands of people pour into the convention center, it's like my version of getting my ride open, right?
Yeah.
So when I get to see people coming in, it is something that I know at least once a year I'm going to experience a proud dad moment, is watching this thing come to life, because it doesn't happen very often in my professional career. So, dude, spot on, right on.
Yeah. Andy?
No,
Over to you.
sorry, I was waiting for you to
No.
respond.
He agreed with
Yeah.
me. I was happy with that. He agreed with me.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, I think that a lot of people have really started their careers doing home haunts.
Sure.
There's I know we had Keith Kaminsky on 2 weeks ago. He did the Fright Gallery here in Burbank, where they put on those big musicals on his front lawn.
Yep.
And then he started out doing home haunts as well, and became a extremely successful art director and production designer for themed entertainment industry, and has worked. He produced their seasonal event at Busch Gardens, Tampa for I think it's 10 years. Literally as a result of his work at his house.
Yeah.
And
we would be remiss not to comment on. So eons ago, like 24 years ago, I helped create Boot Hill, which is still a very popular home haunt in Irvine, in Woodbridge, and they are dark this year, and hopefully will be back next year. But I came to you because, dude, even back then, I mean, we were puppies back then, right? But even back then, you were so fantastic musically and such a great composer and musician that I knew right away that at the time it was pretty little. Now it's grown into something greater than I could have ever imagined as they've carried it on with other people. But I tapped you to do an original soundtrack for Boot Hill, and it is still used today, at that home haunt. And you did such a beautiful job, dude. I mean, it's like yesterday. I close my eyes and I'm hovering probably way, way too much over your shoulder, listening to you do that yow how, for Boot Hill. And it's wonderful. And I've actually thought about that when I think about, you talk about the podcast now, but obviously your career. And I'm wondering if maybe that was your first haunted attraction gig. Maybe that was your first haunted attraction recording. I don't know. But it was certainly one of the first things you did for something like that, wasn't it?
I think so. I had done several home haunts at my house, nothing very elaborate.
Right.
But I had made the soundtracks for those. At the very least, I was assembling them, with various on various tapes and whatnot. But that was probably the first, really thought out and composed music that I had done for a haunted attraction. Yeah, what was that? 98, 97?
Well, let's go with that. That sounds just about right.
Well, I mean, I think
we'll go with that.
at the time I was doing shows for Saban for Fox Kids.
Okay.
Because I remember it was at my parents' house.
Yep.
I was living with my parents down in Anaheim during that time. So it had to have been sometime between 1996 when I graduated and, I'd say year 2000 or 1999 when I moved out.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and it was great, and it was wonderful then. It remains wonderful now. So what a cool piece of that legacy that you have. You've got part of yourself in Boot Hill all these years later. So much fun.
I think it's a great haunt. Number one. I mean, Shay and what's the other guy's name?
It's Glenn Schmidt. Yep.
They do such a great job, and especially with the makeup and the costumes and everything, it's so great.
Yeah, their whole team is great. I, of course, visit that every year, and it's like homecoming, for me. And we take pictures, and of course, then I again feel very proud that I helped start something like that. So, but I'm glad you were a part of that. And what a crazy journey in full circle it is now that lands us here today, yapping about that, right?
Yeah, it is. It is pretty amazing. Yeah, I'll have to go next year.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
I was there for like the 20th anniversary, I think it was.
Yeah.
I think I went down there for the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, I think
Anyway.
I think it's over 25 now or something. There were a few years that were skipped, so it's not like constant, but it's up there, man. It's been around.
Yeah, I mean, I think we touched briefly on how doing home haunts and doing them well and developing your skills and your talents it definitely is a path
Yeah.
to having a career in themed entertainment. I mean,
Yeah.
you're putting yourself out there to the public, to scrutiny, and to throughput. For one,
Yes.
I mean, especially if it's a walkthrough, I mean, you learn a lot really quick about building things to last and building and designing for people, for movement, and and repeatability and story and lighting, and you're learning about all of it. If you're doing all of it, with just you and some friends or whatever, it's all you're doing all of it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a
No,
great.
It's very interesting because also the more elaborate these things become, and the more social media lets all eyes be on what you're doing, more and more home haunters are learning that they have to, commit to the city codes, safety coding, all that stuff, and that can make and break a haunt. It takes, unfortunately, just one neighbor that wants to be nasty, and they call, and it can be very disruptive, if not fatal, for these home haunts. So we fight for that too, because most of the time these haunters are just giving back to their communities, and in many cases, a lot of them they're donating cash, they're donating canned goods, and they're making a difference. And sometimes people are just like, well, there's too many people on the street or whatever, and they shut down these things that have been running for years. I mean, Rick Palizzi had a problem with Boney Island, which was a staple here in the valley, and he had pretty much one neighbor that kind of single-handedly made life hell and shut down Boney Island. And Boney Island would bring tens of thousands of people a year and brought so much joy to kids and to families and all that. And it just takes one, and then it's all just dust in the wind. So these things are very special, and they're very delicate, and we fight like hell for them when they're here, because they are absolutely bricks in the community.
Yeah, I mean, Boney Island was such a important part of the haunt community here. I was so pleased when it found a home at the Griffith Park Live Steamers.
Yeah,
where it was able to live on in some form.
Yeah, it really was great.
Yeah.
So, we talked about like limited barrier to entry and all that, which is great. And also, you don't have to have creative approvals. So if you have an idea as a haunter, and I'm catching on the lingo, Rick, that you're saying, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's like, you can create your own idea, create it, and execute it. Go online, build it with a little gumption. It's really quite remarkable, And you were mentioning it, Rick, that you spent 18 months to work on the Midsummer Scream, and then it happens. It's like, for a haunter, are most people going ahead and starting as soon as it's October, November 1st? Are they going back and thinking about next year? What's the culture like? Are they just like all in? Okay, I was going to do this. Now I'm going to do the next thing next year. What's it like that you experience?
Yeah, it's not ending. I mean, any haunter, number one, is never ready on time, and they're always adding stuff to their attractions, and they're tinkering with things all the time. The community, we always say, like with Midsummer and with haunters here in Southern California, it's not a holiday, it's a lifestyle. And it's true. This community goes year round, and there are gatherings, and there are workshops that people meet once a month at people's homes and learn how to do different special effects. There's a whole community here. But absolutely, if you're a haunter and you're building a home haunt, you're already thinking of stuff that you're going to do next year already, because once something is open and guests are coming, it's done, right? So even when we're, like I said, with 18 months with Midsummer, for instance, we already have stuff planned that we've been talking about now for the next 2 years for Midsummer. So the process, you just put it in the right cubbyhole, right? We can't do it this year, but hey, there's time next year, so there it is. Or boy, that's going to be a nice to have. Let's do that for maybe 22. That sounds like a really cool idea. So yeah, it's an ongoing process. Absolutely.
Yeah, being a haunter is so much, in a large way, it's so much more than a hobby. It's almost like saying like, it's like being an architect as a hobby. It's like, no, that's not really how that works.
Right. Yeah.
Plus,
once you build something as a haunter, it's always changing, right? You can go change it. If you build an attraction and something doesn't quite work, well, it would be nice if things get fixed. But hey, ask the Yeti, right? So if something breaks, it breaks, and it's problematic. So not very often do things get tweaked and fixed right away. Haunters are always in there. They're their own creative team. They're their own creative directors. And I might say that they are some of the best creatives that I've ever known and worked with. Outside of what we do professionally in the industry, some of these guys can run circles around people that work in the industry.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One that comes to mind is the what was that haunt in Santa Monica?
The House of Restless Spirits.
House of Restless Spirits, yes.
Yeah.
Where that guy, I don't remember his name, but he built these elaborate, very small, very subtle effects that would all pack up in these very beautifully handcrafted wooden boxes, and all this kind of stuff, and like everything was just so meticulously crafted, all the effects, and it was so quiet and understated.
Yes.
That was my absolute favorite haunt I've ever seen of all time. It's such a shame that it's gone.
Yeah, it was beautiful, and it really kind of came in the footsteps, and I think was inspired by Gary Korb's Hallowed Haunting Grounds.
I was going to bring
which
it
was here. Yeah, it was here in Studio City, and that is considered the granddaddy of that's the birth of the home haunts here in Southern California. It was in the very early '70s that Gary started doing that. It was Haunted Mansion-esque in theme. It was inspired certainly by the mansion, and just kind of took on a life of its own, and for decades was a must-see. And the later you went at night, it was a who's who in entertainment and themed entertainment, and it was not a jump-out boo scare thing. It was a very subtle, mournful, solemn graveyard that if you looked at things, you would see like a face on a tombstone, and if you stood there for 10 minutes, that face would go from young to old. Very subtle, very, very subtle things that were just beautiful. So House of Restless Spirits followed in those footsteps. And you went around the outside of the home, and everywhere you looked, you could peek into windows, you could look into an open woodshed, and you would see ghosts materialize. And it was, again, very subtle, no boo scares, no jump scares. Last year, I was in Woodland Hills, and I'm again on the SoCal Haunt list, and I don't remember the haunt's name off the top of my head. It was pirate themed, and we went, and I swear to God, I got so excited because they had some of Restless Spirits gags that they had there, and it was like being reunited with old friends. It was really, really cool, and I got so geeked out and so excited that here are these. So one is a barrel that has ghost fish that appear in the black water that's rippling down below. And it was there, and it was so exciting to see this stuff again. So
the actual ones or recreation?
Yeah, the ones. No, the ones.
Oh, wow.
I was like so excited. I was like, wait a minute, I've seen this before. And then I talked to the guy, and yes, that they came from Restless Spirits. But how cool is that? And haunters are masterful at reusing things and passing. It's like hoarders. It's like professional hoarders, right? Nothing ever goes to waste with haunters, you know. So so even things do kind of pass on. They do live on because you do find bits and pieces of them. Like when you go to Universal or Knott's, right? You go through mazes and you're like, dude, that prop has been here for the past 20 years, bouncing around from this maze to that maze. Yeah. Nothing ever gets thrown away, right?
No, it's good. Yeah, it feels like there could be what was that? The Disney Plus channel or the Prop Culture? Was that the name of the show?
Yeah, it's a
like,
great show. Yeah,
like someone's got to produce that. Speaking of culture, like what do you? So you go to? Let's just say I'm a fan of Halloween Horror Nights or Not Scary Farm, and I'm just trying to step my toe into the water, and I hear a Midsummer Scream, and I'm like, I want to go to that. What is the culture surrounding that event? As honest as you can be about it. Like, I know Comic-Con, there's a lot of chutzpah around that, and then there's D23, and I'll put you up there. Like, what is the culture that you're going to find yourself? What things can you expect as being a part of that commitment?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be very candid. I mean, I talk to people that come to Midsummer obviously all the time, and we have people that come internationally, people that are locals, people that come by themselves, whether their partner's not into it or their friends are into it. We have people that just pack up and come by themselves across country, to Midsummer, because when they arrive, they find instantly that they are surrounded by and embraced by like-minded fans. Yeah. And I've been told ever since starting this that it really feels like a weekend of homecoming. And what I say is like, looking at myself growing up, I certainly was an awkward kid, and I am pretty awkward still. And I think that for one weekend a year, we create what I think is like the island of misfit toys, right? And we all come together. And if you were the kid that was picked on in class, or you were the kid that didn't fit in because you weren't a jock or whatever, or you were the girl that liked to wear black dresses instead of colorful dresses, well, guess what? This is your family and this is your community, and nobody's going to judge. And in fact, the horror community and the haunt community here is so open and so diverse that we are very proud of that. So people come and they say it's unlike any other convention that they go to, that there's this certain electricity, this almost tangible in the air at Midsummer, and it is their favorite weekend of the year, and they really do feel like they are with family when they're at Midsummer. And I concur. It's the same way as, you people that grew up with Not Scary Farm. When you walk through Ghost Town and into Fog Alley for the first time every year, you're home. I mean, that's it, right? You're home, and that's it. So it's the same thing with Midsummer. So we've created a safe place for this culture, and everyone has kind of gravitated towards it. And knock wood, there are many fantastic years ahead for that.
No, that's.
There's an incredible lack of gatekeeping in the haunt culture. It's really, it's really inclusive, and that's I think one of the best things about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that's great to hear. Yeah, I mean, it feels like such a great culture. I'm telling you, I'm making this. I will be at 2021. I'm gonna fly out and come from Orlando, and I'll be there. I'll bring my wife. I think she'll love it. Don't tell her yet, but she'll love it. It's just a great vibe. Are there parties at night? I don't know. I'm used to IAPA and other things. Are there like fun little get-togethers at night? We could take this conversation offline too.
We do. Like any convention, you got to have a big Saturday night party, right? So we do. Yeah. We have Midsummer Scream after dark, and dancing. There's a prized costume contest, and just a whole lot of fun. And that has grown over the years. And kind of changed. It's funny because in creating an event, you would think out of all the things we do, we have show floor that has like almost 400 vendors on it, which is mind-blowing, right? You have the Hall of Shadows, which is ridiculous in every way. You've got all these breakout rooms. You've got major world-class panel presentations going on. We've got education going on. You'd think that a party would be like a pretty easy component. Just add booze, turn off the lights, and turn on the music and let it go, right? It has been the hardest thing consistently every year to try to peg. So our first year when we came out, we knew that we had to come out swinging to show the world this is the new premier Halloween convention. This is Midsummer Scream. No one else is like us. No one is going to be like us, and this is going to be your choice. So for our party, we had Oingo Boingo play. Nice. And that was something that I had wanted to do for a long time as a lifelong Boingo fan. And so when we decided we were going to do Midsummer, I kind of made it a stipulation. And David Markland, who's our executive director, he was like, go get Oingo Boingo. I was like, yes. So we did that. And so the first year, I mean, who has Boingo play their Halloween party, right? So it was great. And then it's evolved over that. And one year it was held on the Queen Mary in conjunction with them and Dark Harbor. And then we just found, though, that opening up our own space and having it in the Grand Ballroom, which by day is our theater, which seats 2,000 people, and after the last panel, the team comes in and clears all the chairs out and converts it into this party space with a dance floor, DJ, everything. And that has really been the way to go. So that's themed every year. And we had a great theme for this year that we hadn't even announced yet. So it's so cool. We're going to hold it for next year. But it's going to be a wonderful time. But yes, absolutely, we have a party. We have the mother of all Halloween parties now, too.
and in the middle of summer.
Absolutely.
Which is good. That's what people want. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very jazzed and pumped about this. I feel like there's a whole world of haunt that I've never been exposed to. So I'm just like, I'm jazzed. Like I want it to be July already, so I can go to the next July 9th through the 11th, 2021. I want to get there.
There's a plethora. There's a plethora of stuff online. not just about Midsummer, but I mean about everything we're talking about, right? And it's funny because it's easy kind of see now, what it is. But even like when, I would tell my friends or family, I'm doing the world's largest Halloween show. And they're like, oh, that's cute, type of thing, right? And then they come in and they're like, Jesus God, this is amazing, and they don't. It's like the mothership's landed in Long Beach, and I was like, well, I wasn't kidding when I said it's the world's largest, and we take up the entire Long Beach Convention Center, which is a pretty big footprint. But it is what it is, and you come out with your wife. We won't tell her yet, but you're going to come out with your wife, and we'll take care of you. I know a guy. You're going to have a great time.
Cool. Well, what's so funny? Speaking of family, okay, so this is a funny little story. So I work for Nickelodeon as an art director for them for theme park design. Everyone in my family just thinks I work for Disney. I tried to explain to them, no, they think I work at Disneyland. I work at Disney World. I mean, despite what I'm wearing today. Andy, do you have trouble describing to your family what you actually do for a living, or do they just think you're like a fanciful wonder creature?
No, everybody. Well, I have a really small family now, but everybody understands what I do for the most part. I've been to Disneyland or various places with them and been like I do like that
yeah.
that thing you're hearing is what I do, and they're like, oh, I didn't even know that somebody would do that. Like, no, it just produces itself.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I don't have any trouble with that. I mean, my most of my friends. The vast majority of my friends are in the industry now, so
fair enough. Well,
but it's hard. It is hard to explain that because, I mean, we're all in this position, and I know that you hear on every other themed entertainment podcast, it's kind of hard to explain because until we were involved in it, we didn't think about it. I never went to Disneyland going, I wonder who made Pirates of the Caribbean. It's something that didn't dawn on me until I worked at Disneyland in the late 80s, and one day they were cycling logs on Splash Mountain that had not opened yet, and I was standing outside of the final drop, which is Chickapin Hill, and that was just to position someone there to let people know, no, it's not open yet. Moose out front should have told you. But so I was standing there, and this was back when we had days where there was nobody in park. I mean, like we would have more cast members than guests in the park. Boy, we miss those days. And I was standing there just kind of looking at nothing in particular, and up walked Tony Baxter and Bruce Gordon. And we had about an hour-long phone call discussion, basically explaining to me what show writing was. And it was the Jesus light moment that came down, and I was like, okay, I know what I want to do with my life. This is it, because I suck at everything else. This is totally what I'm going to do. And so it wasn't until being told by Tony and by Bruce what this was that I was like, oh, God, there's an entire industry that does this. So it's something that people that aren't in this profession don't really think about.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot different now. Now you've got, prestigious universities handing out degrees in themed entertainment, and that's not something I ever thought I would see, because it's such a multidisciplinary industry, with so many highly skilled and highly trained professionals, in very compartmentalized, that this generalist degree is like something that I never thought would happen.
Yeah, no, and there's tremendous resources for young people. There's the TEA, there's all these SCAD, all these things for young kids and young designers getting into this that we certainly never had, and
I mean,
that's a whole other discussion. But there's a lot of stuff out there for people that want to get into this.
I mean, I teach a class now for the tech workshop series, and I would have done horrible, dirty things as a young adult to have taken the class that I'm teaching, about theme park audio. 10 hours, well, soon to be 15, 16 hours on just theme park audio. And how incredible is it now that people have that resource? And then, concurrently we had a class on show writing, and 3D design, and then they had over the last few weeks they had themed entertainment designed for Halloween and all this kind of stuff. It's,
Yeah.
it's incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible, and bringing it back to where we want to be, there is a very thin line between haunts and themed entertainment industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it's been a few years now, but there was a point where there were a lot of haunted attractions kind of being on the show floor at IAPA, and I thought that was pretty cool. Now that has kind of gone away, but there was a time when there were walkthroughs and there was a lot of really cool stuff at IAPA. And it's funny because when you do talk to people that are into the Halloween thing and the haunted attractions, they get it. And then there are others, and I mean, I've worked at enough companies where you bump into a lot of people that just don't get it. And it's almost, they don't say it, but it's almost the, oh yeah, the haunter people, whatever. It's like, no, the haunter people are doing stuff that's like running circles around you out there. And they're the people that are going to come get your job because they have a portfolio that blows people's minds. So there is a very thin line between seasonal designers and full-time, and I think it's great. And I think it's important that we have these discussions and really kind of let these, because you know what, a lot of the kids now that we see with, back then, like when Gary Korb in the early 70s was setting up this Haunted Mansion tribute in his front yard, he wasn't thinking, I want to be an Imagineer, type of thing. It was just he wanted to create something cool for Halloween. But now there's a lot of young folks that we do work with that absolutely have their eyes on the prize. And that is, we're going to do this Halloween thing, but this is a stepping stone to this bigger goal that we want. And by God, they're going to get there. They're going to get there a lot faster and a lot easier than we did.
Yeah. The beautiful thing is that everyone knows Walt Disney Imagineering and Universal Creative, but we know, we all three of us know that there are tons of companies out there that do amazing things that are also about it, and so that's why the TEA is such a great resource to see. Okay, yeah, Disney Universal hire the same people. It's just about how they develop that work is going to get it where it is, which is fantastic. And I mean, we know that the halls of Walt Disney Imagineering and Universal Creative are aligned with people that came from Not Scary Farm, Halloween Horror, or art and design. It's a great skill set to learn, and I feel like it's I don't know if this is the right word, but like scrappy design of just being able to get things done. And I don't say it's pejorative. It's just like, how do we get things done on these budgets to do the most you can?
That's the core of being a haunter is, dude, you are out every weekend at swap meets, you're out at garage sales and estate sales, and you are dumpster diving your ass off. I mean, they will tell you everybody's trash is possibly the next treasure that they're searching for. So no, the epitome of being a successful haunter usually goes back to being very scrappy and very good at working with nothing. So
I have some just random questions for you.
Sure, of course. I've got random answers for you.
So, this year when COVID happened, and what I will say is that a lot of the resources that we have, like Tech Workshop and other things that have brought up, kind of came out of the Zoom world that we all live in now, which Zoom, everyone knows Zoom, that's okay. We're all designing, which is good. Where do you think the haunt community in any way, or, is going to have a virtual environment in some way? Have you seen anything like that out there?
Well, sure. I mean, it's changed our lives in every way, pretty much, right? Mm-hmm. So you're seeing a huge surge in drive-up and drive-through haunted attractions around the country, and I would assume probably around the world, although most of that is really kind of focused here in America. I would say that you're going to see maybe some of that spill over to next year. But I really do think that the general consensus is once this is in the rearview mirror, we're going to go back to haunting the way that we want to be, scaring. And because a haunted attraction, really the heart of that is you are vulnerable. You're in a often claustrophobic environment where there is something really bad waiting around the next turn that you can't see. And that's very hard to do from 15 feet away when your guests are coming through in their own cars. And so as detrimental as this has been to the themed entertainment industry, it is all but destroyed, Halloween attractions and haunted attractions. So I think that once let's call it like it is. I mean, we have very short memory, right? We all pretty much hate the TSA and hate having to deal with all that. But how often do you stop and say, well, it's in place because of what happened on 9/11? You just don't. It's an inconvenience. I can't believe I got to take my shoes off again, type of thing. Whereas I think that once COVID is dealt with, very rapidly, we're going to see theme parks and haunted attractions kind of return to normal, because I think that's where everybody wants. And let's be honest. The way that Disney's doing it now in Florida, the way that other parks are doing it around the country, it's not sustainable. And you aren't going to be able to feed the beast running at 25% capacity. You're just not. There will come a day where you can't wipe down those lap bars between cycles. You can't, have your queue with everybody virtual or 6 feet apart at all times. It just is not going to happen. It's just not sustainable. So for now, yes. But no, there's the long answer to your fairly simple question. I think that everything will go back to normal once this is in the rearview mirror.
So let me just ask another question for you. So 5 years was big deal. 10 years from now, where do you see the haunt community? Where is it at? Where is it gone?
Wow. Yeah, it's really, I've seen it grow so much over the past couple decades. Where will it go? I think that we will continue to see younger haunters coming online with attractions and concepts that are so far ahead of the curve and so polished and so professional that when you realize that the person behind this amazing display you're looking at, or this incredible haunt that you're walking through, is a 13-year-old kid, you're not going to be able to wrap your head around that. But that is what we're seeing. We're seeing that right now. So I would say, God, in 10 years, I think that the community is bigger and better than it's ever been. I think that Midsummer is still around, and I think that it really continues to be the epicenter of the Halloween and haunt community right here in Southern California. And that's not to disparage anybody else out there around the world or around the country, but really nobody does it like Southern California. They just don't. And that's even Northern California doesn't even do it. I mean, Southern California is absolutely the epicenter.
Would you say that so now you had Midsummer Scream, the virtual, everyone was there in spirit. For the Midsummer Scream. Can you tell us about like that process of when you realized that, not to be a total downer, but the event was going to be canceled or at least delayed, and you had to go virtual. Can you just tell us about how that went down and what you were thinking and when you had to make those tough decisions?
Yeah, so that was the hardest decision that we've ever had to make in all the years of doing shows, including the Scare LA thing. And no, it's something that we struggled internally with for weeks, if not longer. I mean, we knew pretty far out from when we announced it. We knew that this just was not going to happen. And really, the death knell was when Comic-Con canceled. Yeah. And we just thought, Jesus, you just look and you realize that, like a theme park, because we designed Midsummer Scream the same way as you would kind of envision a theme park, working and operation. There wasn't one aspect of what we did for Midsummer that wouldn't be really, really screwed up or destroyed by social distancing, CDC guidelines. And back that up, I made it very clear with the team, and they agreed that there is no way that I would want one guest, one participant at our show to get sick or, God forbid, worse. Yeah. Because we wanted to open the doors and put money over safety. And so in that regard, it was an easy decision. It wasn't easy, but it was easy in that regard because we're not going to put anybody in harm's way. But no, we struggled. We looked at how we could do things and how we could rearrange things. And just at the end of the day, especially for our 5th anniversary, we didn't want to put on something that sucked. We didn't want to do something that was like mediocre, and never wanted people to come away going, well, they tried their best. Because no, that's not what we do. So yeah, that was hard. So then the funny thing is, at first we were like, a lot of people were like, but come join our virtual convention. And David and I were like, Well, that sucks. That's like so boring because like you could go YouTube surfing and watch content until your eyes fall out, and it's not engaging. It's not, when you go into Midsummer and you're there in the ballroom with the biggest crowd we've ever had for a presentation was last year. We had the Haunted Mansion, anniversary presentation, and we had well over 3,000 people.
Wow.
I think, in the room. And it was standing room only along the sides and the aisles. It was amazing. And you just can't capture that on a live stream. You can't capture, you can talk to people. We're talking here, but it's not as engaging. I'm not able to look out at the people in the front row and look out at people in the 30th row and make jokes with them or feed off of the crowd. So it is very different, and it's hard to really recapture that vibe that people come across country and around the world so eager to have for that weekend. And so you certainly don't get the camaraderie, right? So for a long time we were like, well, that's it, see you next year. And then more events started doing online things, and David kind of said, hey, I really do think that we should, not for the whole weekend, but maybe for the day that would have been our Saturday, maybe we should do something online that's like a day-long thing of programming. And so we came up with, There in Spirit, and it just kind of grew from there. And that was really David's baby. So all kudos and props to him. He really took that. He for the most part, like, created all the programming for it, and he set everything up with the time slots and how it was all going to work. I showed up throughout the day just to like do an update on what haunters were doing and kind of talk to haunters around SoCal, and that was it. It was just me on standby, and then I was hopping in, and so I had no hand in it work-wise, really. I just sat around waiting for go time, and so David worked his ass off on that, and the team supporting him on the back end was great, and so it was very well received. It was very well received. Have I gone back and watched everything from that? No, because again, it's just not as engaging, right, as going to the show in person. But that's how that all went down, and that's how our There in Spirit stream came to be.
Well, and also I will just say, like, Andy and I produce a lot of content, but we know that there are people that, like, if I was trying to enter the industry or I was just casually watching, I know that I would want to hear all these new perspectives. So there is an element of that too, right? Like, we're not the demographic for what we produce, so it's like, it's totally cool, right?
Well, everything that we do is, the philosophy with Midsummer is that we created the show that we wanted to see and go to as fans. Mm-hmm. Right, so it's not like we don't wring our hands and go, God, what do you think people will say? We got to check this box. It's never been like that. I bring haunts into the Hall of Shadows that really impressed me when I went out at Halloween and visited and saw them. Every haunt that's brought into the Hall of Shadows has been vetted, and it's not a happy accident. I mean, they're there because they are the smorgasbord representing the haunt community for people that are going to get this little eyeball on everything for just a very quick time, and then realize, oh, wow, there's a lot of stuff to get into in Southern California come Halloween time. So it's something that, we really kind of, everything is vetted properly, and we just always do what we would want to see first and foremost. We figure if we like it, a couple other people are going to like it, and so far, a couple people have liked it.
So, just maybe a final question, because I know. Sorry, what was that, Andy? You were muted. The Zoom. Yeah, I'm muted. You're muted. Are you muted? I'm muted. You're muted.
I'm muted. No, I was just. I think it's so nice that you guys just do that organically and just like, it's not like focus groups and marketing and polls and questionnaires and all that. You just do you go old school, just like, here's what we want to see. We think you will too, and it's very successful. I think I wish I long for those days. For Disney and Universal and some of the bigger parks where they were just led by a few sort of like creative auteurs, and they just did what they thought would be good. And those days.
We're at Nickelodeon, just for what it's worth.
No, and I long for those days, and I don't think we'll really ever see that ever again.
Yeah, it's one thing that we do get to avoid with Midsummer is the dreaded charrette, right? We never walk into a Midsummer boardroom and have 30 people there that think they have the best idea in the world, and the one show writer of the room is going, Jesus God, this is going to be a long day because I'm not using any of these ideas, but we'll play nice. So no, we don't. We kind of banter sometimes, and we are familiar enough with each other, and we're comfortable with with each other enough that if I throw out a bad idea or David throws out a bad idea or whatever, we look at each other and go, dude, that sucks. What are you? That's stupid. No one's gonna. So we do have that because we're comfortable enough in that, and we know that there is a give and take. And more often than not, it's like, and to David's credit, a lot of the time, because our tastes are different in things, a lot of the time David has been like, okay, not my thing, but I trust you on this, and so there is a lot of trust on our team.
And you don't have a creative overlord or a carpet overlord.
No, we don't. I mean, we answer to well, ultimately we answer to the community. We don't exist without the community. And so, but as far as the being creative and all that and what we're going to do, no, it's the four of us just deciding what's going on. And God, I love it that way. It's so good to do it that way.
Sorry, Patrick, you were going to say.
Yeah.
I had a great moment of what I was going to say, and I kind of forgot it. Sorry, I got distracted by the interruption.
My fault. I'm sorry.
No, you should not apologize.
Wait till you're over 50. It happens a lot, man.
I know. It's like, we were talking about the charrette that didn't happen, which is bad, or we're happy that the Crave's in the room, and then I don't know what it was. Oh no. Oh yes, maybe that was what it was. Oh yes, I know what it was now. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm Patrick Kling.
I'm tingling with anticipation.
Part of the Zoom world and part of the whole idea of these events going digital is that people from across the globe can participate with them, which has been a plus for like the THEAs, the case studies, the virtual expo that happened with Blue Loop last week. Is there any elements of Midsummer Scream that maybe for next year you're thinking, oh wow, maybe there's a few thousand people that would want to participate from home? Can we broadcast that out? And I apologize if you already do that. I do not know. But how is that maybe changing for you?
So we don't. It's kind of a complicated answer, and I don't want to make it sound. I have to think about what I'm saying for the first time. I got to think about what I'm saying because so we have kind of agreed since the beginning that if somebody truly, really, an adult, truly wants to be there and participate in this, they have like a year's notice. They can get there if they want to be there. So it's one of those things where we're very media friendly. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of like 300 media outlets that come to Midsummer every year, ranging from the major news stations to mom and pop blogs to vloggers to YouTube influencers, whatever. And we very, very often are really like, yes, shoot everything. Shoot all these panels, shoot everything that you're doing, shoot what you can, just no lights in the Hall of Shadows, just do whatever and share it. I mean, you go onto YouTube and type in Midsummer Scream, dude, you're set for a week watching stuff. Very, very rarely do we say this is something that we can't use, have you film. We have Zombie Joe's, which is a troupe out of North Hollywood, and they do a very adult show, and it includes nudity and all that. So there's no filming or photography in that. Then we have, there once in a while there are panels or presentations where the company may say, we're going to show you concept art. We don't want anybody. But that just doesn't happen very often. It really doesn't happen. I would say 99% of the stuff at Midsummer, knock yourselves out. And so it is shared. And often when at the beginning of the show, you said, oh my God, that's such a big thing. It's such a big blur. There's a million things going on. Absolutely right. And so the way that I personally experience Midsummer Scream is for weeks and months after. I watch videos of all the presentations. I listen to podcasts. I read articles. I look at pictures. And really, that's how I digest Midsummer, because it goes by so fast. The 4 days, the 2 days of install, and then the show, and then we're done. Or now 5 days, if we do a third show, whatever. But it's a blur. So social media and letting people film your stuff, that's the way that we kind of digest it and absorb it. So no, we don't broadcast. Plus, live streaming and getting a hard connection in the Long Beach Convention Center or any convention center is ungodly expensive. And Midsummer is already a very expensive toy to put on. So that's just an added cost that we're not into. And we really do think like the hardcore fans that want to be here, they're here.
Gotcha. Fair enough.
I think that's only going to become more prevalent as we get 5G rolled out nationwide and at convention centers and things like that, and you'll be able to stream 4K video from your phone over the internet, and everybody
love it. And we invite that. We embrace that. There are so many. IAPA is one. I go to IAPA, and the 6 foot tall no board that you're met with before you go into the show floor is so unfriendly and so unwelcoming. I went one year as TPA to IAPA, and I got my hand slapped by them saying, please call our office. You're posting pictures from the show floor and you don't have permission. And I'm like, you approved my credentials as media. What am I supposed to be doing? Singing Kumbaya with Dynamic Attract? What am I supposed to be doing here? So we are very, very media friendly at Midsummer. And that, again, because of a lot of our backgrounds and definitely my background with TPA, we know exactly what media folks want to come out and do, and they just want to come out and do their thing and not be given a leash and not be told all the things that they can't do. And so I think we're very good at that.
Well, Rick, before we land the plane, we always call it landing the plane.
All right.
Do you have any? It's October 2019, and we know that a lot of things were affected for COVID-19. Your convention was affected by COVID-19. Do you have any parting words of wisdom or bewilderment or love that you want to send out to the world before we wrap up the show?
Yeah, I just say all the time that things are rough for everybody. I mean, in varying degrees, but this is a whole world. This is a world event. This is a historical event that we are front row and center for, that none of us asked to be present for, but this is something that will be written about for years long after we're gone, the great pandemic of 2020. So just hold on. You're not alone. You're definitely not alone. We all have cash problems. We all have rent that can't be paid. We have jobs that are either gone, just completely obliterated, or on hold, or you're either teetering over that unemployment line and you know that any day you go into work could be your last day. We're all there. We're all there. We're all there together. The world is unfortunately a very volatile and very ugly place at the moment for many reasons, not the least of which is political. And, remember that we are all in this together, and nothing is stronger than love and coming together. And these things will pass. They will pass. And just when you're down, because I have to remind myself this, I lost my job because of COVID, and I just moved into this new place and suddenly had no way to pay rent and all that, and lost Midsummer. So all of my income was wiped out for this year. And that's very, very scary and frightening. And you just got to step back and say, there are so many people that were burned out of their homes in the wildfires, or they've lost loved ones to COVID. You will find that in the big scheme of things, if you just breathe for a minute, you're doing okay. We're doing okay. We're going to get through this. And so I just tell people all the time, love one another. Be good to one another. And wherever you happen to call home, just remember that is your sanctuary, that is your safe place, and just do your part and make this world a more tolerable and ultimately happier place for one another.
Oh, that's really great advice. I'm happy to hear you say that. That's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on to
talk
Rick, about this stuff. Yeah.
Rick, please stay on the line. We're going to end the show, but this has been a fantastic show. It'll live on and on Facebook forever, as long as those two companies are around. But thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week. Rachel, what's on for next week? Dark Harbor Celebration. As you are very aware of those folks, we have a great show coming up next week. But thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you on the other side next Monday.
Thanks so much, Rick.
Absolutely. Happy Halloween.